Hello and welcome to another video. This is the Elm Bathtub. So we're going to be playing Company of Heroes 3 today. This is a pre-alpha preview version of the game, which is something I must stress because it's nowhere near completion, not a beta, not even an alpha. This is just something that they are allowing people to have a go on to provide feedback and hopefully make the full release of the game as good as it can be. I've played Company of Heroes games before and they've been really good. I've enjoyed them. Very hard, I've found, but enjoyable all the same. I've got an interest in the World War II era myself, so this is why these games do seem to buy into my gaming tastes. So this is brought to you by a developer called Relic Entertainment. If you've not played one of these before or know much about them, and it's published by Sega. Okay, so some ideas on the settings within the game. You've got some basic control settings you're just seeing there. I won't bother to talk through all of them. I'm sure you can see them. The only one I would actually focus on is when we get to the graphics options. I'm playing on 60 FPS and medium image quality and medium texture quality are the options there. And I did try and play it on unlimited FPS and higher levels of graphics, but it ran a bit like a pig. Now, that's probably just my computer. I could probably get away with running one of those on higher, but we'll see. I was quite happy with the way it looked on medium, to be quite honest, but just to let you know, that's what I'll be playing the game on today, and a few other options you can see here with audio and accessibility. So for any of you who may not have played any of these Company of Heroes games before, it is a World War II real-time strategy game, and this particular version, so the pre-alpha version, they've decided to allow you to have a test campaign, in inverted commas, set in the Italian theatre, and you are on the side of the Allies. And it starts with gaining a foothold in Naples, and you already have that port when you start the game, and that's where the tutorial takes over and guides you through a few basic things. You can turn that off if you don't want to do it, if you're familiar with the concept, but that's the theatre of war in this particular game. Previous versions of this game were primarily focused on the battles themselves, so you would be thrown straight into the heart of the fighting and the strategy from the word go. There'd be story in between the battles, but you wouldn't have too much direction choice. You would be told what you would be doing next. The game was pre-planned. This, as I'm sure we'll cover through the video, does allow a lot more freedom of choice by the player, and we'll just cover as to why that might be, as I say, as we go through. One of those first initial points really is actually the new map they've got. So any of you that are familiar with Total War games, perhaps, you'll be aware that you're presented with a map of the area that you'll be working with. You can see cities, you can see units with their little animations, all of those kind of things, roads, in this case railway, you've got cities, you've got various features, rivers, forests, all of those things, and that territory can be played with, so there are advantages and disadvantages of certain terrain types. You know, for example, if you're stood in the middle of a road, you're a much easier target than perhaps if you were in the middle of a nice dense forest or something. But the map is interactive in that way, and it looks pretty nice. It's very nicely illustrated in terms of gives you a real good feeling of the time, I feel. And you can really sort of get stuck into it and maybe draw yourself into the moment of landing on the beaches in Italy at the time. The map itself aside, just for a bit perhaps, the game will start by allowing you to pick 3 different strategies, which will hopefully be popping up on the screen as you speak, but those are the 3 different strategies that you can choose from. Now, they all contain different types of units that you start with, and that's basically the crux of it. Which units do you want to start with? And, you know, you probably don't know which units are good at this stage, but there is a description of how you'll be playing the game depending on which of those 3 choices you make. Now, in my game, being British, I've gone for the British option, which I'm more than happy with, just because, you know, I'm more familiar with maybe some of the units. That was my hope with some of the weapons, but I don't suppose it really matters in the slightest. That's just the one I happen to go for. But I quite like the idea. It's really good to give you a starting block of choice, so you get a choice from the word go, effectively, which is great. Once you've made your decision, you start to see what you've got available to you on the board. Now, the game works in, it's structured in 2 ways. You've got your companies, which are, should we say, your main units. So, I think as the British option I've chosen, you have an Indian British Indian Artillery Company, and a tank unit of some description. Now, alongside those main companies, you've got support units, both of which you can move around the map, and both of which have their uses and various abilities. Now, companies are far more useful in that they are the ones that will be able to initiate missions and skirmishes, which are the things that take you into a battle, which we'll again cover that part in a bit later, hopefully. But support units can attack other units on the map, and they can take cities and towns if there's nobody in them. So they've both got uses, but companies are your primary units, and they're the things that will get you into the heart of the game. So they're vital. So if you lose a unit, make sure you're rebuilding them. All of which, as I'm sure you'd be aware, in a game like this would cost resource, but all of that is explained if you were to play the game. So as I did briefly allude to there, you can carry out combat on this map at any time. So you find enemy unit, you pick one of your units, you attack it, and there's various statistics involved as to whether or not you're going to get a positive or a negative outcome from said battle, or said small fight, because the main battles are sort of a different part of the game. But the main thing of the game is actually objectives. Now, as the game progresses, you receive notifications of certain things. So you might be asked to free a town that houses partisans, and by doing so you get access to those partisans. You might be asked to take out a German officer. You might be asked to find a German officer, take an airport or an airbase. Not an airport, it's more of an airbase during the war, isn't it? Airfield, airbase. Those sort of things. So you'll be receiving these tasks all the time, and they can be stacked up, so you can have more than one thing to do at any given time. And a lot of them, you do have time sort of restrictions to them. So you might have, say, 10 minutes to complete this particular task, and you've got 15 minutes to complete this other task. And you'll keep getting reminders, which does get a bit annoying after a while. If you are onto something, so you know that you're working on something, you might not want to be getting poked all the time to get a move on. You might be well aware of what you need to do, but it's part of it, and I'm quite happy with that. I like the objectives; they're varied, and they are definitely in line with sort of historic accuracy. It's not necessarily the characters involved, but the kind of things that you're expected to do, you could certainly imagine you would have been asked to do at the time. But no, really good on that front. I'm liking the objectives. So when you approach an objective, and remember, you can only take an objective with one of your companies, not one of your detachments, you'll be given a pre-battle screen. And this just gives you a highlight of who you're attacking with who you're attacking, so you get an idea as to what you're up against, the map itself, bits of information about that. And also, you get to choose a couple of different options to support with you. Now, your detachments, if they're sat outside the objective, so say you've got a medical unit outside the airbase that we're attacking, it will pick that up and you can draw them in as support. You will have to pick them manually, but that will give you extra things. So in the example of a medical unit, you will get a medical truck, and that will give you the ability to go around and heal units. Now, if you didn't have that support unit there, that's something you'd lack. So it's always something worth considering. So you'll have engineers, I think you've got sappers, and as I say, medical units there. So it's really important to consider all those things. And when you're ready, you just click Start Battle, and off you go. It takes you into the combat itself. The combat itself is really cool as well, and before you start fighting, the game will generate a series of objectives, and it may be that you have to take a particular position. It might be that you have to defend a certain position, or it might be you have to take out a specific unit perhaps, but it's all highlighted from these screens, and so far they've all been unique. So the maps have all been unique, the individual objectives within the battle have been unique, and they're nicely and clearly laid out as well, so you know exactly what you need to do at every given time. As you move through completing these objectives, you will gain buffs to your companies. Now, you get these even if you lose, but obviously the amount of experience points that you get to spend and accumulate are actually going to be less if you don't win. And the more you do, the more points, in inverted commas, you would be able to spend. But they're basically buffs, so you can improve companies, you can add extra vehicles to them, you can add extra abilities, because during the battles you can use certain abilities, you know, like for example, a sapper might be able to lay some mines, it might be able to build some barbed wire, some anti-tank traps, those sort of things. You can add these things at varying different levels by spending the points that you earn for battling, so you can always improve, and you should be, in theory, getting stronger and stronger. And it's all to do with just perks, really. They're just a standard game perk system. You do something well, or you do something generally, you're going to get extra things that you can then spend on various improvements. It's just a standard thing, and it's really good. I do like the choices. You tend to pick a tree that you want to take, or a route you want to take through your perks, so once you choose one path, then you can't go down the other path, basically. So the game can change every time. This is why it's really good. There's so many things about this that it will give you a different game each time you play, and that's one of the things that the developers boast of here. Every time you play, you could do something different, whether or not that's just different perks, different strategies at the start of the game from those 1 of 3 options. You could do something different every time, rather than be fed a linear story, which for me works so well. There are a few things which, to be fair, this isn't really bugging me that much, but you'll find that as you play, there are certain icons missing. So you click on a unit, you might be able to hover over, and one of the options is maybe throw a grenade. You won't have a little image for the grenade, but you'll have images for other things. For example, I'm just being very general there, but I don't think they've got all of the images for the different actions yet. It's just text with a white background, and I'm sure that will adjust, but you do have to just read the text to see what the things that you're using, and I'm not sure all of them work. I can't guarantee that, but I did click on a couple of these things that you can use with certain units on the battlefield and on the map, and I tried to use them, and they don't actually do anything, so I do wonder if all of them are functioning. But again, this is pre-alpha. I don't care. I understand that this is just what it is, and it's been pretty good so far, certainly on the things that we've discussed. Not gonna be too fussed with that. Just to cover some of the visuals now, really, because I think that's one of the most important things about these games. You really want to feel like you're involved in something realistic to an extent. I love the way the map looks in terms of the initial map unit, the one that I've compared to Total War Games, that side of the game. I think it looks really, really good, and the animations of the units, although they're not the best that I've seen, again, could improve, they still look good enough. And certainly because this video, everything you're seeing is played in medium textures and medium image quality, so I'm sure they can look better through different options there that are selected. So by all means, you might be playing in extremely high level image quality and you'll see everything better than me. But I like the animations generally. I like the way the map is built with all of the features. It looks good. I can't complain with anything on there at all, and I'm happy that it gives you a good feel for the game. Going back to one of the points I said earlier as well, certainly when you're on the map mode, this is where you receive your different objectives. At one point, I had, I think, 3 or 4 different things floating on in the background that I was asked to do. I don't mind that, but I think, me personally, and this is just my opinion, is that I like maybe just 1 or 2 things to do at the same time. As soon as you start stacking loads of different objectives up, especially when they're in different directions on the map, you've got to go north to do this one, south to do this one, over there to the west and by the coast for the next one, and all of those different things, it can become a bit too much. But again, that's my personal preference. I don't like to be clogged down with too many things to do at once. They're not mandatory, they're optional. If you fail them, you fail them. If you don't do them in time, you don't do them in time. I have found as well that if you don't do something in time, there was a case of taking a hospital, and I ran out of time, so it disappeared from my objectives list. But when I took it, so eventually I did take it, I still completed the objective, despite the fact the objective had actually gone. But again, I'm not going to complain too much. I was still able to complete an objective. Maybe the time limits aren't that strict, or maybe that is a bug and I shouldn't have been able to have completed that objective after the time ran out. Who knows? It's just sort of my view on it, really, at this stage. I think perhaps it would be nice if you can actually pick your tasks, though. So you get something pop up on the screen, you can accept or decline it. There's a perk for accepting it, or a buff for accepting it, or maybe a rebuff for declining it. But just maybe give the choice is just something that I thought would perhaps be a good thing there. But again, it might just be my preference. Other people may be more than happy just to be thrown the objectives as you go through, as the game generates them. I don't know if they change every time you play. I'm not sure. Perhaps not in the pre-alpha. I haven't replayed what I've done. I've just played it once, and I played about 4 hours of it. So I'm just sort of giving you experience on that. So I don't know if they do change if you were to play through again. Perhaps they do, and then they vary somewhat. Now, although some of the combat can be on the map itself, which is absolutely fine and is good enough to be included as part of good gameplay, more than happy with that. The battles themselves are, I feel, where people are going to enjoy it, and this is where I enjoy it most. It's when you actually get into those objectives and actually into those battles. That's where you can apply real strategy. You control the individual units within the fight. You move them around in real time. You move them into buildings. You retreat them. You heal them. You take them out to headquarters for reinforcements, sort of those things. That's where the real heart of the action is. And the battles are fantastic. And this has been something that I've really liked in the previous iterations of Company of Heroes. I've got the first one and the second one. So what they really are good at is the maps during the battles themselves, and the scenery and the terrain. I love the scenery, certainly the ones I've played so far. They're unique and representative of the town or airbase or hospital that you might be taking, or village, everything. It's completely representative. The buildings look fantastic. The environments are destructible. So I just remember one distinct moment, a mortar shell went through the roof of a house I was aiming at, and it took out a specific section of that roof where the mortar fell through and exploded from within, and the windows shatter on the buildings, doors fall off, vehicles that are on the map, their tyres can, as far as I can see, their tyres can become damaged and flat, glass everywhere from windows. It's so good, and the amount of detail, and you can zoom right into these things as well. It's absolutely commendable. Even playing on medium quality, I think it looks excellent. It's all quite smooth as well. There's no sort of strange, not that I've seen, no strange glitches to graphics during the battles themselves. I'm sure there are probably some, but the physics as well as the actual visuals are also very good. Again, with the mortar shells and the guns and things like that. I think when a tank fires, you get the recoil. A tank explodes. I think it's just done very, very, very well, and it seems realistic in terms of the physics as well. During the battle itself, you can build different units to reinforce, and this all sort of stems from what you've got available from your company and the detachment supporting. So you can build more tanks, you can throw in more riflemen, you can throw in some sappers during, but you've got to wait to build them, and they start at their headquarters, and you have to shift them across into battle. But there's a lot going on. It's all based on the available resource, which is shown at all times in the game. There are also some special actions, and on the right hand part of the screen is based on the overarching company, so the company will have special actions to use as well, such as you can call in an airstrike or a bombardment from your ships. If you're near enough to a port, you can call all of those different things in as sort of special things you can do. They are also available. So there's so many things that you can do, so many choices, so many options for bringing certain things into the combat. It's really good in that sense. Now, I can't remember this from previous games, well, certainly previous Company of Hero games, sorry. There's a pause menu in this, and it's a tactical pause menu. So rather than just pausing the game and having a think, you can pause and actually get movements planned ahead. So, for example, you pause the game and nothing can happen to you. It lets you evaluate where your units are, and you may wish to, say, take a tank, and you might want to move that to a certain point on the map or start firing on something. You can do all this when you're paused, so you can issue multiple orders, so to speak, at the same time for different things. When you unpause the game, those orders will be fulfilled. So you've got the time to actually plan things, and you'll be finding that you'll be pausing this lots. I mean, I pause every 5 bloody seconds because I'm pretty crap at this sort of thing anyway, but I love it, don't get me wrong. But I'm pretty damn crap. But I find myself pausing it fairly frequently just to sort of micromanage my movements of my units and what exactly they're doing. And you've got to keep an eye on everything, because these maps are big. They're very, very big. These battles, actually in the combats themselves, they are big. So you could have 3, 4, 5 different things going on at the same time. You know, up to the north, up to the down to the south. There can be something going on a bridge, all sorts of stuff, and you have to manage all those situations. And the only real way you can do that is by pausing it and going into this tactical menu and actually trying to work out each individual bit and giving them orders and letting them play out. It's a necessary feature, and I do really like it. It makes what is a very hard game a little bit easier, which is dead important, because without that, I think you would become very stuck and die very quickly. Not that I don't anyway, because I'm, as I say, terrible. I would probably lose the vast majority of these. I won a couple, but lost a couple as well. So, but all good really. But no, vital is that pausing of the tactical planning. One other thing I would possibly hope that comes into the full game eventually is the ability, when you're back onto the map mode, so the preliminary screen before you go into any battle and you're kind of moving your units around, is the ability to plan ahead. Now, you can move 3 places as a matter of standard. Obviously, that can be affected by various things if you pin down, for example. But you can only move 3 places. That's fine. But if you've got a long way to move on a map, I would like to be able to right-click where I want my unit to go, and it will do that every time you continue to your next turn. Remember, it's a turn-based strategy game now. You move your men, you press next turn, the opponent has his go. It's the way it works. It's turn-based. But I would like to pre-plan my movements. So I want Unit A to go off and go miles over to the other side of this mountain or something like that. I want to just be able to click there, and it works it out for the next 3, 4, 5 moves. With it as it is, I have to remember to move them 3 places at a time, and I can't do anything en masse in that sense. So hopefully it will allow that eventually. But I can kind of understand perhaps why you wouldn't, because something could happen in between, in which case you could just interrupt the movement that you have planned. So you could get attacked, or something could get in the way of you. A blockade could be built or something like that. You can interrupt the movement, but I can maybe understand why they're not including it, to make sure that you're thinking about every single individual turn, rather than just saying, you know, sod it, I'm just going to plan everyone 20 moves ahead or something. And I get that. That's fine. Just as a summary, following on from everything I've said so far, this is free. There's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't give this a go. It's not going to be a waste of your time. If you've enjoyed previous Company of Heroes games, as I have, this is different because of the way it's now turn-based, and you've got this new map interface added on to the standard battle modes. But I think you'll like it. You may be used to the original format, but this is an improvement in my opinion. It gives you another dynamic. It turns it from a 2D game to a 3D game, so to speak. You've got an extra element of strategy to think about, rather than just a linear story. You create your own story. It's a great idea, and I think that they can only really do well from this. As long as they keep building on what they're doing already, I can only see it being a success, to be quite honest with you. It looks great, the sounds are great, the objectives are great, just the level of detail for the units and the way you can buff them, and the things that the units can do on the battle themselves. There's some great things there. It's a hard game, but it's a challenging game at the same time, but in a good way, in that you can improve, and the reward for winning something in this is bloody high, you know, in terms of self sort of satisfaction, because you feel like you've genuinely achieved something if you've won a battle. It's knackering when you win something, because you would have fought damn hard for it, I can assure you. But for me, it's good because of that. Some people might not want that level of difficulty, and that's fine. But for me, it's just right. Absolutely, go get yourselves this pre-alpha game. But yeah, give it a go. It's excellent. If you're new to real-time strategy games or turn-based strategy games, this is fine. Just jump straight into this. Don't worry about playing the previous versions of Company of Heroes. It won't matter. Just have a go. Enjoy it. I'll be getting this 100% when it comes out. I can't wait to see the finished product, and certainly any alpha and beta or early access modes that I can get, I'll be getting. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I'm not going to rate this out of 5 as I have done for my last videos. It's not fair because it's not a completed game. So I'll just list a few things I've enjoyed just as a surmise at the end for you to read. But aside from that, get involved and enjoy it. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Bye now.